Nation, Mother Earth. And in a good bunch of people tonight. Have some fun, guys.
Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Revelations about Diary of a Madman, the ultimate Ozzy Osbourne podcast, where we geek out about all things Ozzy and all things Ozzy related. But with Revelations, you get to geek out with us. So, Dan, before we get into this too far, go ahead and tell the listeners what this new experience is for them.
Thanks, Josh. I'm super excited. This is something that we've had in the works for, I'd say about 9 months now. And we got to give a quick shout out to Uncle Steve first from Iron Maiden. He does something very similar. And Ryan and I were guests on his show, which was awesome. But what we're doing with Revelation is we are bringing in our listeners and Ozzy's biggest fans to tell your Ozzy Osbourne story. We want to hear all about it, how you discovered him, the first time you saw him in concert, how has he impacted your life? All these great questions that we want our fans and our community to learn together so we can continue to praise the man himself, Ozzy Osbourne. And our guest tonight is none other than our main man, Ryan Beavers. What's up, Ryan?
Not much, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be part of the inauguration.
Well, Josh,
Absolutely.
could we think of anybody else that needed to start the show?
Yeah, it had to be Ryan. There's no doubt. And our listeners have a definite passion for Ryan. They like when he's on the show. And, he's the perfect one for us to guinea pig on and kind of see what we really want to do with this. But like you said, Dan, ultimately, we just want to grow the community. From the start of this show, we've discussed growing the Aussie community online. And what better way than to have them all reach out and tell their side of the story and how he came into their lives.
Yeah, I agree. And I just said Uncle Steve, like everybody knows who Uncle Steve is, by the way. It's Uncle Steve's Iron Maiden podcast, by the way. Check him out. He is a man that knows Iron Maiden like we know Ozzy Osbourne, and it is an incredible podcast. And thank you, Steve, for letting us borrow the idea. But I think you borrowed some of our ideas, so it's all even Steven when it comes out in the end.
Even Steven's Iron Maiden zone. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, the last thing before we get started, I know we have other inquiries that have reached out to us. Please be patient. I know we have not reached out yet, but we are back stronger than ever, and we will be reaching out to you via email, everyone that's reached out that wants to be a part of the show. Yeah. So stay tuned. All right, Josh, back to you.
Real quick, too, there's a certain fanatic that we hope to have on shortly also that's reached out to us, and I think fans are going to really get a big kick out of her story. So we're looking forward to that one also.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
Little teaser, if you can figure out who the fanatic is.
So to start off our show, Ryan is going to be doing most of the talking today. No pressure. So, all right. So Ryan, why don't you first introduce yourself and then go into how you first discovered and learned about Ozzy?
I'm Ryan, obviously, as I can hear my wife laughing right now as Josh says that listeners have a passion for me.
And for the record, Dan just wants you to do most of the speaking because my internet's going to cut out the whole fucking time. So that's all it really is.
That is very true.
Ryan, I'm from last name Beavers. I'm from the about 30 minutes southwest of Chicago. It was weird, as we were kind of talking about doing this episode, and how time kind of just escapes you, right? Like you don't think of how fast you can't understand how fast your kids are growing. You can't understand how long it's been since you graduated high school or whatever. So when I was putting together the artwork that we're going to use, going forward with this, it's like, holy shit, this summer, at some point this summer, this is my 30th year of just like Ozzy being in my life. So it's kind of surreal, especially considering I'm only 38. So, it kind of kicked off at a really, really young age. As far as...
Yeah, that's awesome. That's younger than most people. I think most, early teens for most people before they really find their musical crush like that. So that's killer, man.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. And kind of in reflecting that I've been doing the last handful of days on that is I still have very vivid, like visual memory of, it was summer 94. We were coming back from a Chicago White Sox game, and I vividly remember driving down Interstate 55, heading south, coming back home, coming around a bend, seeing like the city in the rearview mirror, or in the the side mirror, and just kind of cliche. Of course, I wish I had like a cooler like introduction that wasn't so obvious, but Crazy Train.
Yeah.
Crazy Train came on. There's a station called Rock 103.5 The Blaze back in the day, and yeah, they were like the hard rock, classic rock, kind of the same BS that most major, metropolitan areas have nowadays.
Did they play Sweet Leaf like all day on 420 or what?
Not that I would have like picked up on at 8. But they probably
I don't know
did.
if 420 was a thing when you were 8, to be perfectly honest.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
I mean, not too long after that, but yeah, that was like my big, it was like epiphany moment, just in the car, and it was like.
So was it the
What
guitar
is this?
riff that drew you in right away? Was it Ozzy's vocals? What kind of like stood out right away where you're like, holy shit? Was it the weird intro?
It was the intro. It was the all aboard, and then just boom, boom, like just it just resonated. And I don't, I have one younger brother. I don't have an older sibling or even any cousins that listened to that music. So I wasn't, it wasn't kind of foisted on me by being surrounded by it, and kind of that typical story of just being brought into it by kind of association. It just, why that spoke to me at that moment at 8 years old in the car, I have no idea. But I mean, it just changed everything for me. So.
Yeah. Well, one thing about the intro to Crazy Train, just to piggyback on that, Crazy Train is Ozzy's burnout song, right? Let's just be real. It is. It's the Paranoid. It's the Sweet Child of Mine, whatever. You know what I mean? But it makes it easy to forget how fucking awesome that intro truly is. So you know what I mean? Like, because we overlook it now because we've heard it for so many years and so many times. But like Ryan said, everything, the all aboard down to the da-da, 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 which Randy Rhoads was doing in Quiet Riot, by the way. Imagine that. I guess Bob Daisley didn't write that part. And then into the screeching guitar. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, and then the main riff, which is to me the coolest riff ever written. It's my favorite riff of all time.
Yeah, it's great.
And yeah, there's just so much going on there that you nailed that, Ryan. I can totally see how that would draw in. And that's the one that drew me in also, was Crazy Train. So I totally feel you on that.
So did you like go home and be like, holy shit? Did you like pay attention? Who's singing? Who's dad? You said you were with your dad, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, no, not necessarily. It wasn't like an instant, like, just wave of obsession. My parents were kind of like big partiers. They just were like, they had a big group of friends, and they all had kids.
And they were listening to the Blaze, Dan. Imagine that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, we got together all the time, and it was always just like music centric more than anything. So in kind of reflecting back at that, like, I remember hearing a lot of Ozzy, never from my parents. My parents were Prince, Billy Squier. Like, the heaviest they ever dabbled was Aerosmith. Okay. So, and it wasn't from them, but it's kind of just indirect, kind of overhearing stuff over the years, and it's stuff that I never picked up on. Later on.
That was Ozzy Osbourne at the time, or did you like hear the song later in your life and realize that's the song I heard that I loved in the car?
Yeah. Well, yes, that, and funny enough, as I started kind of going down that rabbit hole of his discography, I very, very specifically remember Over the Mountain. So.
Man.
So yeah, like the drum intro, the riff, like, it was
the greatest.
Undeniable. So I probably, heard that 100 times, in the background while, playing video games with friends or whatever, hanging out in the backyard. That I never picked up on it until.
How do you not have a soft spot for Over the Mountain? Now let's call you out on that. Because we all know, Josh, what does Ryan hate?
He hates it. He hates Over the Mountain. We all know that. He hates it.
Dislike song.
So,
you didn't even ask that question.
Yeah, and with that history, how do you hate it so bad?
I appreciate the lore that you guys have created around my disdain for that song that is completely fabricated on your parts. But it's just that, I'll just say, at the scope of his discography, I do not hold it at like the cream of the crop the way that you guys do.
Okay.
I love it.
So that means
It
you
is
hate
fantastic. Yeah, sure.
He
Sure.
hates it.
Yeah.
He hates.
I'll take Fine High Again, Can't Kill Rock and Roll, all those over the mountain. And it's not a diss at them. Like it's a song. It's a strong song.
All time. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nonstop. It's a perfect intro song, but it's not what I would. There's a lot of other things I'd pick before it. So
Ryan,
let's leave it at that.
I mean, Josh, would that song be in your top 10?
Yes.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
Oh,
You got
congratulations.
the greatest drum intro of all time.
By far.
Randy's guitar solo in that one, man, just
made me want to play guitar. That's it.
just
I think
blows me away. And my favorite part is the band chokes. So
good.
So fucking
Yeah.
good.
And then the vocal melody.
And the
It's
vocal
incredible.
melody.
And it is in my head every day of my life.
And who knew Bob Daisley wrote all of it.
He
all
wrote
of
the drums. He wrote the
It was him.
guitar
It was his
part.
Guitar solo.
Yeah.
I mean,
Randy was
matter of fact, he should get sued because the guitar solo starts out with Black Sabbath. That's some kind of, he should get a lawsuit over that.
Obviously,
Also.
I think might have wrote that too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We're giving Bob a hard time tonight. I can't help it. He's been in the news a lot lately.
If you support something that says Bob Daisley wrote the album by himself, then that's just is where I draw the line. Okay.
It truly, not to change the subject, but does it not blow your mind that Randy Rhoads fans don't get more upset about that shit too?
100%.
Like he's totally trying to steal Randy's glory. And then he even a few years ago said he showed Randy these parts and this and that. And I'm going, at what point is people gonna say enough's enough of this shit? Like
it's ridiculous.
He was a huge part of it, no question.
Yeah.
No question. But give other people their due also,
100%. All right, Ryan.
Ryan.
Let's get back to Ryan. So what is the first album? And you heard Crazy Train. How much longer till you went out and bought your first CD?
So it was about a year.
Okay.
I think if I can speak for my parents, they're probably a little, trepidatious about Ozzy in general. Like most people know, like pre-Osbourne's, Ozzy was
the devil.
Like the devil.
Yeah.
He was this wild, like, he made people uncomfortable. And now my parents they are not those type that they're not, they don't scoff at that stuff. But I'm sure at 8 years old, they're probably like, what the fuck? Like, they didn't stop me by any means, but it was just, it was just kind of this thing that was kind of an aura about, the radio's on, and and I got a little extra excited when those songs would come on as I started understanding, his music. But it was my dad who picked up just before, it was this like the spring of '95. So just before they'd like released all the remasters, he picked up Tribute on CD for
just
me.
like Josh.
And it was one of those. It was I remember him coming home with it, and I remember him like, yeah, I saw Crazy Train on there, and like Iron Man sounded familiar. So like it was just like
a story.
It was just, he was looking, he flipped through, and this seems like somebody would like, having no any idea of the history or whatever. So that was my first introduction. Was Tribute live. That was my first full album in hand. The plastic, opening it up, and like, oh my god.
So did you say it was CD or album?
CD.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I can jump in real quick, Ryan, your dad and I had like the exact same fucking moment. I was at the music store looking at a CD, trying to find the right Ozzy CD. I knew I liked Crazy Train. That's the one I wanted for sure. And I was just looking, and I didn't realize that Tribute was live, but I saw Iron Man on there, and I thought, well, fuck it, this one's got Iron Man too, and took it home and put it on. I remember being so disappointed that it was live, because I didn't know it was live when I bought it. And I was like, oh. And the next thing I knew, hours later, I was hooked. So that's so neat that it was such a similar story, though, with your dad choosing it for that same reason.
And funny enough, I was disappointed that it was live too. It was one of the, I don't think I ever said anything, but it was one of those things where I was like, Dad.
Well, yeah.
Right.
And Crazy Train didn't have that same intro the way you knew it from the from the radio and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, not at all.
It does have a great intro on Tribute though, but it is different.
Oh yeah.
It is great,
different.
but it's just different.
Yeah.
So Ryan, how long did it take you to get over? Like Josh said, it was by that night he was like, fucking slide, but I love it. Was it pretty?
It didn't matter. It was just it was heavy. It was fast. It was, again, unlike anything that I listened to on any kind of regular schedule at all. So I mean, it was kind of full bore at that point. The obsession was entirely there. So that the 95 remasters came out in August of that year, and I remember
all in the lead up to Osmosis, right? Because Osmosis came out.
Yeah.
In October, right.
Yep. And I remember, I don't remember the timeline of it, but I remember getting Blizzard, Diary, and Speak of the Devil, and I kind of just was going along the discography from the beginning, and then I remember Osmosis, dropping. I remember Perry Mason dropping and hearing that for the first time.
Yeah.
Again, very photographic memory of that. Like I could pull up Google Maps and show you exactly where we were sitting at a stoplight.
Yep. Can I say something real quick?
What was
Josh,
Ozzy at first? Very different.
Do you remember, Josh, where you were when you first heard Perry Mason?
100%.
Me too.
I
Isn't that crazy?
I called the radio station and requested it, and I waited over an hour for them to play it. They didn't introduce it. All I heard was that dun, dun, and I'm like, "Fuck!" Hit record on my cassette player to record it.
I did the same thing. I'd wait about 3 hours.
Instantly. Yeah, I waited about 90 minutes and knew instantly though that it was him when it clicked on with that synthesizer intro. So yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Sorry to cut you off, Ryan.
No, that's fine. And then it was that Christmas I got my mom wrapped up a shoebox, and it was the rest of the discography. They bought me everything else, all the other remasters, Osmosis. So I was set.
So at this point, have you not got into Black Sabbath yet? Is it strictly been solo Ozzy?
Yep, 100%. That was kind of my next, that was the next steps, was that. And that ended up, the first thing on that was We Sell Their Soul for Rock and Roll, which I just knew that was, I knew it was a great, I knew it was the greatest hits, and it was like, that makes sense as like an intro.
Yeah.
And I will say, it did not hit me the same way. Like, it took me some time. I think we've kind of discussed it as a group. Like, we were Ozzy solo kind of forward as far as like our tastes go. If you had to choose between the two, it took me some.
So let's get to it right now.
Sure.
Black Sabbath or Ozzy? You're clearly Ozzy solo.
Yeah.
Still to this day.
To this day, yeah. I would say it's way, way closer nowadays than it ever was back. I mean, it really took some time between the difference in the sound. Ozzy sounded different. Everything was just so different. That was listening to Volume 4 was nothing, despite it being barely 10 years apart. Listening to Volume 4 was like nothing like listening to Diary of a Madman. So
right.
Totally so to this day, 2024, Ozzy's live with Zach, we'll call it Blasco and Tommy, or you can go see Sabbath with Tommy, Tony Iommi, and Geezer. Which one are you picking right now? Because I know if it was with Bill, you would go for the Sabbath just to have the four of them. But
I still pick Ozzy.
Well, I would. Well, and that's the thing. It's a weird thing. It's a weird time for that kind of question, just because of everything that's been going with Ozzy for the last 5 years.
Right.
I feel like I got my closure with Sabbath.
Definitely.
Obviously with Bill missing, it's still a big hole there. But if I go into my head, I had to go one or the other. I'm choosing Ozzy solo.
Love it.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so continue, Ryan. Sorry we cut you off, but we're gonna be doing it the whole show.
That's fine. Where were we at? Where were we at?
You just got all those Christmas presents.
Box,
Yeah. Greatest Christmas ever.
To this day, my greatest Christmas ever.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, and that just it just completely springboarded it to. I mean, it was full on obsession.
We get it.
Everything, every album, and like I said before, I kind of look back and I'm like, why on earth did this resonate with me at 8 and 9 years old, and with no like real introduction other than one song on the radio one day. So with no one to like pinpoint that reasoning to, like I said, whether it's a sibling or a cousin or my parents, I can't figure it out. I've always wondered it.
Just meant to be, man.
Yeah.
I think it was
like
the sound of his voice, because all three of us, granted, I had an older brother. Josh, you also had the older brother, but at the end of the day, they didn't become obsessed like we did. You know what I mean? Like they were fans, but there's just something about Ozzy's voice. I can tell you from my experience, first time I heard it and when I hear it today, it just moves me unlike anything else on the planet. It's just there's something inside of me that resonates with it.
100%. And it really boils down to, we've kind of talked about it, privately, like you clips come up, or I've seen cover bands here or there. There is nobody at all that sounds like the man, period. No one has ever fooled me. I don't think it's possible. Just nobody sounds like him.
And Dan and I've discussed before too. Every tribute band wants to do the Osbournes, Ozzy, and it drives me nuts because that's their easy way out to try to try.
It's kind of like how every Elvis impersonator wants to be Fat Elvis, right?
100%.
Yeah,
that was me at Halloween about 10 years ago.
But you bring up a good point, and it's my argument of why I prefer Ozzy over someone like Dio, and I'm not trying to do an Ozzy versus Dio thing here, because obviously Dio has an incredible, obviously fucking voice, but I think there's plenty of people that do sound like him and can emulate him, but I don't think people can do that with Ozzy.
No, nope. 100%. It's just, there's something about it. It's just, and I think it's one of those things where it either resonates with you or it doesn't.
Right.
I don't, there's not too many people that have ever come across that full on hate his voice by any means. I've never, there's people that talk shit on the internet, but
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But yeah, I don't think there's too many people that out and out dislike his voice.
So how does this lead up to your first show? So what was your first concert? When were you old enough to go? And how did all this obsession wind up for you going to see him for the first time?
I mean, I don't know when you would say I was old enough to go, because that's, my introduction, my first show, like, I remember reading about Ozfest, like we've talked about earlier. And I think anybody who has any history, before say 2001 with Ozzy, everybody in the internet era knows about Ozzy Head. So that was kind of my outlet for anything and everything to do with him. Like I spent every day on there in some capacity, like some kind of update. So I knew about, inaugural Ozfest 96. I knew about Ozfest 97, but again, I think I don't remember ever trying to like, hey, could we go? Anything like that. It just never really came up. And I think, again, my parents were probably a little like, I don't know about that. And for whatever reason, Ozfest 98 came up. And they did not come to Chicago for reasons I still to this day I don't understand. That had to have been some really weird logistics issues. I don't know, because they came the year before. They came every single year after, even though it was 2010 when they only did like 10 dates. Chicago was one of them. I mean, like, if you're going to hit a Midwest hub, it's usually there.
On the end, they hit Chicago twice.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I remember very specifically, like, they gave the okay for it. And at this point, it's been about 3 years. I had a handful of my cousins. I'd really, one in particular, a male cousin, he was on board. Like I got him like just full on addicted. The two of us sitting right into the fan club like two dorks. Both of us getting like the signed letter, the signed 8x10 back, which is sitting on it.
Those are real, man, aren't they? Have you guys ever actually inspected those? They're real.
Yeah.
Sharon, because I had one. Hey, Sharon on there also. Did you get one from Sharon too?
No,
I did not.
At
No,
some point, I got one that was signed by Ozzy and a separate signed by Sharon, and they both are real. Yeah.
I got I got one signed by Ozzy that got sent to me from a fan club, like in the mail, and you can tell it's a real signature.
That's what mine is. It's from a photo shoot from the Osmosis session.
Osmosis, yeah.
Yep.
And
Mine is
the
No
chain.
More Tears live
Oh,
shot.
really?
Yeah.
Ryan, was yours like the chained the shirt that's like made of chains or whatever, like small?
No. It's like almost like a silhouette, but it's looking like from underneath him, and he's got like a hand on each side of it. I'll send you a picture. I'm looking at it right now. It's in a frame.
Yeah.
I'm still
one that's kind of like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. I'm still, a little shitty because it came bent. The crease is still there. I remember the mail envelope being bent in the mailbox and just
suckers. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that was 98 is your first time seeing him.
Yep. So it just kind of.
Did you get to see Motorhead also that day? Did you catch Motorhead?
No. So.
Bummer.
Yeah. So between me and my cousins, it just kind of became like this talk. We got to do this. We got to do this. We want to go. And my parents have always been like the cool parents to be. They've always been the young parents. They had me and my brother at 19 and 21, and so they were always the cool parents, and they were the ones who kind of broke down. And I didn't realize until actually probably the last handful of years. 8 of us went. They rented a van. They had paid for all of our tickets, including my cousins. So, my mom had only been working full time a couple of years at that point. So that's a big deal. They paid for all those tickets, rented a van. We drove all the way up to East Troy, Wisconsin. Now the venue is escaping me right now, but it's still there. It's their outdoor venue, which is it's primarily it's like 70% lawn, and then you have I don't know maybe a few thousand people that in seats in the front.
The Alpine Valley Music Theater.
Yes, Alpine. I don't know.
Good call, Dan.
I'm ashamed that I forgot that, but anyways. So yeah, we just had lawn tickets. So I'm 12. My brother's 10. My cousins are everywhere from 13 to 15. And man, we pulled up. We did it. I mean, it like every other year for Ozfest, it had to have been 107 that day.
Yeah.
Just miserable. Not a cloud in the sky. But man, you talk about getting exposure to everything and anything you can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, fires in the lawn, fist fights, the toilets overflowed,
the painted boobies, the girls wearing the painted boobies.
Not even just full on naked women.
Yeah.
They had sprinkler systems on tents set up all over the place, and they just knocked them down, and just the fires in the lawn, ripping up pieces of sod and throwing it, and that was kind of that year was Limp Bizkit's kind of like a big introduction. And I remember them being on stage, and they call the girl up on stage. She strips totally naked up on the big video screen. Fred Durst is talking to her. How old are you? I'm 17. And he's like, get the fuck out of here. Like it instantly turned into like security running up there, yanking her by the arms. Like, this, I think my parents were just like, what the fuck did we do? Like, we're in it. Like, and the day was like, again, they had done nothing like this. And honestly, who really knew much about that? Like, nothing had been done like that. I mean, other than,
Lollapalooza.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lollapalooza. I don't know if it wasn't quite a huge traveling thing like that. So it was unique. And then, of course, you have a very different type of music, and it just So
I actually didn't see that tour. That showed that year missed Phoenix.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Megadeth was there that year.
Yeah, that lineup sucks. I'm sorry, it's awful.
I thought
Tool,
except for System of a Down and Megadeth.
Yeah, Tool was there. I mean, it was
like Tool very well. I'm sorry.
I do like them now. They meant nothing.
Limp Bizkit, Soulfly, Tool.
It's funny.
Like
the other day, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. The other day I went and watched Marilyn Manson at Riverbend in Cincinnati, and I was kind of noticing, and I mentioned it to my wife. I said, back in the day at Ozfest, they would throw this big mounds of sod at each other, big grass fights that Ryan mentioned a minute ago. But now that's all AstroTurf at those stadiums now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember, years later at our venue up here, my dad was talking to security, and they said every year after Ozfest, they would resod the lawn. Yeah. Like, it's just what had to happen.
So the great news about that show is he probably played Blizzard of Oz and a few No More Tears songs, and you probably just loved it because you didn't know any better.
So he opened up with Believer, which is it's a very different opener. Like, I'll never forget that. Yep. Like the curtains up.
Believer?
Opened with Believer, 100%.
I don't think I even knew that.
So the curtains up, the big white curtain, and it's just his silhouette, like this 40-foot silhouette of him.
Intro video, right?
Yes, but
those were the classic, man.
And then there was the curtain, his like 40-foot silhouette, his arms out, and then just the dun dun dun, and then it kicks into the riff, curtains drop. Oh my God, it was
Rob Trujillo's all like,
yeah, it was
Joe Holmes too.
I mean, it was already a full on girl geek out obsession with me, but that was just
that's awesome, Ryan.
He played I Just Want You, which was pretty much
rare.
The end of Osmosis songs really being in the set regularly by any means. So those little nuggets that it was different. It was my first time. It was, and then
you got a lucky set.
Oh my God, yeah. So and then we get in the car, we're driving, the 3-hour ride home, and we're all just burnt to a crisp. And then I remember the next day, my uncle came and picked up my cousins, and like 2 hours later, my mom gets a phone call. He's like, "Where the fuck did you take my kids?" Because they're like telling all these stories to him, and they're kind of little like uptight, never in a million years would do any of that type of stuff, and like they're hearing these stories and like mortified. And it just snowballed from there. We never missed it again.
And even the second stage back then was the Village of the Damned, right? That cool title. Everything was just kind of
Yeah.
So, the stage was like a bat wing or something that year in '98 also, right? It was that weird had the wingy things and stuff. We all know that explains Ryan's obsession with the wings for Ozzy.
That's where it started.
I can't get enough wings, man.
I can't believe
all
I
the
didn't
wings.
know he started with Believer that year. That's fucking awesome.
That's incredible. I don't think he ever did again. I mean, it was random, very random choice. But
matter of fact, it fell back out of the set until what, around Budokan or so, right?
Yeah.
When Zach came back. So how many times have you seen him, Ryan?
Man, I want to say it's 20 because
right on the nose.
Yeah, I ended up, we never missed another Ozfest ever. There were multiple years, like 2002, I went up to Michigan with my cousins. 2003, the same cousin had moved out to California. I went out to the show out there. And it just, the only time I ever missed him in town was Sabbath with Pantera in '99. And that was basically, my parents were like, listen, you either go into this or we'll go to Ozfest in the summer. And I was like, well, Sabbath was playing Ozfest '99. Like, it just made more sense. Like, they're going to spend the money, make it an all-day affair. We'll see 20 other bands.
The interesting thing, by the way, Ozfest '98 never made it to the West Coast.
Man.
Yeah.
So there's So there's something weird about that tour. I guess I never really paid attention to that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah,
isn't it weird though how
closest west it came was maybe Wisconsin. Seriously, crazy.
That is crazy. Isn't it? Looking back at it too, how did they manage to put that on? You mentioned that you had to choose between Ozfest or the Sabbath tour, but amazingly the ticket prices were like the same.
And that's really what it boiled down to. Like, I remember that conversation with my parents specifically. Was like, pick one. Like, we can't. We're not paying for both. And obviously, I wasn't working at that point. But very quick, story. I don't think I've ever told you guys, but the 2003 Ozfest, the one I went out in California, insane. It's like we just got there really early, up against the barricades, and it was general admission in the front. And it was just one of those like, all right, we're gonna open the gates, no running, no pushing. That lasted about a half of a second. The gates fell down, and it was just like sprinting to the front. Anyway, so we got front, and I have some digital, like I have some like printout pictures from my cousin had like a disposable camera he brought out. Like we were 10 feet from the front, basically staying right in front of Zach that year. And just real quick story about that is, man, Ozzy's voice was just not there. 2003 was a weird year.
He had a couple of years. Is that when Sharon had cancer?
That was part. That was part of it.
That was the Newstead year too, right? Or was that 04? Newstead was 03.
Yeah. He was just not. He was like physically fine, but his voice was shot. And I remember very specific, and I've been looking ever since. But Flying High Again, his voice just he couldn't hit the chorus at all. And I just remember, and he just goes fuck, slams his mic down and walks off stage. And then
my God.
Zach is looking like they're all the band members are looking at each other. Zach books it afterwards, and then just the coolest thing, the crowd just starts chanting Ozzy, Ozzy, Ozzy. And about maybe 90 seconds later, he walks back out, apologizes. Basically, he's like, "You stick with me, I'll keep doing this." They turned the lights on, and he was still playing. He just kept going, because that was that same year. He did that 3-hour gig in Montreal.
The SARS tour, yeah.
Yeah, so they had a bunch of stuff in the set that had been rehearsed at some point. Oh my God, dude! He just his encore just kept going and going. The lights come on, and he's like, "Who gives a fuck?" And I'm pretty sure they went into Sweet Leaf, and it's just like it kept happening. It just kept going.
That's so awesome, man.
I think Newstead said at one point they would play songs on that tour. He said Ozzy would just call them out live, and he's like, "I didn't know these fucking songs." He's like, "I knew the song, but I didn't know how to play it." He said, "I would just have to kind of watch Zach or try to follow along, Yeah,
we've all been there. I've done that 1,000 times.
Yeah, for sure.
And fake it. So 20 times you saw him. Real quick, last show. What was the last show?
Last show was 2018 on the No More Tours tour. It's again, really
fully stopped.
Oh, so I didn't even realize that. So it didn't make it. Oh man,
he ended. I had tickets. My whole family had tickets. Remember, I probably held the tickets for 3 years.
Wow, that's right.
Yeah. So he ended the tour before he made it here.
So yeah, it was kind of a again, thinking back on all this, kind of a cool, full circle. At least I feel like I got my closure with Ozzy. It was supposed to be the last time, but I was like, yeah, he could be back here 2 more times in the next 3 years. So, but I'm not an emotional person by any stretch. Not even close, but man, I got choked up a handful of times throughout. And it was cool because, we're in the lawn, front of the lawn, just leaning up against the rail. My wife is there. My stepson is there. Both of my parents. My brother came back home from Florida. My best friend from grade school was with me. And then my best friend from college came down from Wisconsin. And it was just like this, whatever it was, 8-9 people. And it was like that kind of circular moment to I was
all experiencing this emotional moment with you. It's fucking
yeah. So it was this circular thing back, looking back to Ozfest '98, and just my parents were the first ones to get me there, and there they were there, and there was so much wrapped up in it. It was for as hard as the last 5 years have been, just the ups and downs and the news and the here and not knowing what he can and cannot do, or if he'll ever do it again. At least, selfishly for me, I do feel like I got some kind of closure. The part that probably is always going to bother me is that my daughter was born too late, and she'll probably never experience it. But if anything, So,
and that's what killed me about that tour is I bought tickets for both of my kids, my wife, who's seen them 1,000 times with me, but it was going to be my whole family.
Yeah.
And I was just dying for us to experience it together.
Yeah, Dan was so excited for that for the family,
Yeah.
and my kids, my daughter not as much. She's okay with Ozzy. My son loves Ozzy, and I'd like to take him at some point, and it's looking more and more unlikely. When we were driving home from the Manson show the other night, Valerie, who I've told y'all before, she kind of prefers Dio, and we fight about this shit all the time.
Oh,
But she made the comment. She said, she's like, I hate that I've never seen Ozzy, because she saw him twice with Sabbath with me, but she never saw him solo. So.
Are you still wearing your ring? I hope not.
Yeah, exactly. So have you met him?
Yes, twice.
Okay.
The first time was Down to Earth, the release. Wow. The week of Tower Records was doing photo ops, and you basically had to buy the album. It was the first either 1,000 or 1,500, I can't remember. So that same thing. My dad loads me and my best friend Brennan up in the car. Or no, actually, it was just me and my dad that night. Went and got in line at midnight on a Tuesday, October. It's raining. We're soaked. Like, it's probably 45 degrees outside. And then turned back around, and I think it was Saturday. He was back, and then he came with a ticket after you had the CD, and then stood in line for hours and hours and hours, and got the photo. So yeah, my dad went with. He bought a CD, I bought a CD, and then my buddy took the other ticket for the photo op. And then it was 9 years later when he did the book signing. He came to this area. It was probably maybe an hour from me. Little bookstore kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Tour that he did there. I loved it.
Yeah.
We all saw him for that tour.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So he did the book signing. Man, again, it had to have been 20 below zero. And we stood out there. We got there like 4:30 in the morning. There was maybe already 20, 30 people in line. And I want to say he didn't come till like 2 or 3 in the afternoon.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. So we stood there. We would take turns going into the car just to warm up. And it was frigid beyond words. And that's I'm born here, raised here. We're used to the cold, but man, that was another thing. And then they finally let us in, and then we were just all lined up like cattle.
Yeah.
And but that was a cooler experience. It was less rushed. I actually got to shake his hand, and I shook Tony Dennis's hand too, just because
cool.
So those two opportunities was pretty incredible.
So before we wrap it up, I just have a couple more questions, and Josh does too. Do you, just these would be fanboy questions. So any other stories or anything about Ozzy that you want to talk about? Like, any experiences or anything like that?
I mean, I don't have, anything other than, the obsession was really, really strong. And you talked about on the last episode about Spencer Gifts having all of that stuff back in like the late 90s and early 2000s. And I had everything. And like, it was just, I was just doing chores around the house. It's like, there's this thing, I knew it was $20, this thing, I knew it was $10. And I was just doing stuff around the house so that like I had some excuse to go there, earn that money and buy it. I mean, I had everywhere I went, any t-shirt I had. At one point I had over 150 like Ozzy / Sabbath shirts /
oh my God, that's
super shirt on, like just tote after tote after tote. And it was only a handful of years back. They were covered in dust in my parents' attic, and my dad's like, "Can you get this shit out of here?" So that's but yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
Is there a particular era that sticks out with you? Like you said, you prefer Ozzy solo over Sabbath. Like, is there a particular era that just is yours?
I would say the Osmosis, being, obviously my introduction. That was my first like new album. To this day, it's my favorite album of his. I Just Want You is my favorite music video ever. Yeah. And I think from like an overall like persona, you could say maybe No More Tears too. Man, he was like the fucking coolest motherfucker. Like he just had the look, like just the chains and the gold, and like I remember he wore that like gothic kind of like gold finger thing, and like
ring.
I love that
just,
the finger thing for sure.
Yeah. He just, man, everything about it, the glasses, he was a cool ass dude. And I just remember like the same way no one sounds like him, nobody looks like him. And I feel like his performance on Osmosis, despite, being the production that it was, he really couldn't pull it off live. I think he sounded
unparalleled.
His absolute best since Sabotage.
Yeah, maybe better. I think he actually might sound better on Osmosis. I know that's crazy to say, but I think he sounds more confident as a singer on Osmosis. And he's actually singing more melodic shit for sure.
Yeah, and it's just more polished.
Yeah, 100%.
He's a studio veteran at that point. So
this is a question we're going to ask everybody. We know the answer to this for you, but do you still keep up to his modern music? Like some people jump off the train, but we know we got to ask the question. You're still into the modern Ozzy?
The same way I was in 1995. I mean, I've listened to Patient Number 9 probably twice last week. Not in full, but just a handful of songs here and there. It's the voice, it's the melodies, man. That's never going to go anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a couple of rapid fire questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right, you already answered one of them. So favorite top 3 albums? Ozzy only, no live.
Ozzy only, and then what?
No live, no best of. So Josh would be like tribute. We can't have that.
I'm gonna go Osmosis, Diary, Blizzard, in that order.
Hard to argue.
Yeah, and there could be arguments to be made that Blizzard or Diary.
But Bob Daisley didn't write Osmosis, Ryan. You can't choose that one.
Oh man,
he's dogging on him tonight.
Oh yeah. And some days it could be, I could say like No Rest for the Wicked could be in there, and then and some days Diary of a Madman is the greatest album ever written. Period. Full stop.
Yes.
Right, man.
Yeah. And anybody that says that, I would never argue it. It's just that.
Yeah.
It
would be his favorite if not for Over the Mountain, Dan. We already know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Over the Mountain just brings it down so bad. Yeah.
Replace
Over the rapid fire question.
I don't really have any. You're firing them off, man. Go ahead.
All right.
You're doing good.
Since you mentioned Over the Mountain, what is your worst Ozzy song?
Ooh. Oh. The shit list for
Ryan. Yeah, the shit list, which Ryan's a fan of and participated.
It's got to be Black Illusion on Down to Earth.
I heard that song this week. I don't know why, but I was listening to a lot of Down to Earth. For the first time, I was like, "This ain't too bad."
As bad as I thought.
So bad. It's not as bad as I thought.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like even his worst song, I'm going to listen to that over a lot of shit.
Yeah,
100%.
But it's in general, it's very plotting.
Yeah,
not overly exciting vocal.
I think we all agree when Ozzy tries to do Black Sabbath as a solo artist, unless Tony Iommi is playing the guitar, it just doesn't. It
falls flat.
I like Ozzy, my Ozzy up tempo and a little bit more polished and poppy.
Yep. A little more rock. Yep. So, what is your all-time Ozzy band if you had to put one together?
Oh, man, there's no caveats to that, right? Like it doesn't matter.
And they may not be on the same record like we had.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah,
no caveats. Who's your favorites?
Yeah.
Who's your all-time Ozzy band?
Randy, Geezer.
Randy Castillo or Randy Rhoads?
Randy Rhoads, Geezer, and
Tom
probably no.
Dan from the last episode. Go ahead and say it.
No, if I'm able to do it, I'm going to say Randy Castillo.
Yeah, of course.
And then I guess you guys ignored the keyboards. I don't think it doesn't matter either way, but I do love what Adam brings. He brings a bit more atmosphere. He
does. He does a little guitar in there too, which is kind of cool sometimes.
Some back, kind of rhythm guitar, and then he even does some vocal stuff too, which I think adds, kind of fills out the sound a little bit.
Yeah,
that's a great answer. I love it.
Yeah, it is great.
Man, you're killing it. All right, so let's finish with this one. Your top 3 to 5 songs. Like this is your top 3 to 5.
So for the same reason, I remember when Back in Earth they did like I don't know if it was a national thing or if it was more regional, but Ozzy had done an interview, a sit down interview, and it was like maybe 2 hours long, right around the release of Ozman Cometh, and they had been teasing this new single. Same thing. I knew it was coming. I recorded on cassette the whole thing because I never knew when it was actually coming. So I just remember being blown away. Like the opening keyboards by Rick Wakeman, just kind of like just being eerie as hell. Ozzy sounded incredible. So for that reason, it's always kind of stuck as my all-time favorite. There's no overplay factor to that at all. Like I can listen to it just endlessly.
The irony, I think you can make an argument that his vocal performance on Back on Earth could be his best of his career.
I would have a hard time arguing that. And it's really, really unfortunate that it's ultimately kind of just a hidden gem.
Yeah.
There was a music video for it, and it was on
video too. That's what I was gonna say. The video was amazing for that song.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's on, Ozman Cometh, but it's not streaming. I don't know if it's on Apple.
I don't think so.
But it's just it's just there. There's no real attention that could properly be given to it. So it's our job to bring more attention to it.
And we'll be discussing that even more next week. Hint for our upcoming episode. We got back on Earth. What else?
Back on Earth. Diary of a Madman. Oh man. Again, like something that I could say this is interchangeable, but I'm gonna go. My number 3 is gonna be Waiting for Darkness.
Yes, nice.
Yeah, fun choice.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's awesome.
All songs that don't get enough recognition. They're just, I think, like the music, like the heavy metal community as a whole, like everybody knows the song "Diary of a Madman." I think most artists would probably wish, like, man, I fucking wish I wrote that. But
I just read a Kerrang article from 1987, like 2 days ago. Yes, people, I read 1987 Ozzy articles from Kerrang.
So Dad was in college.
But yeah, fuck you. But the irony is in that episode article, he talks about how he hates the mix on Bark at the Moon, and specifically mentions how he really hates the mix on Waiting for Darkness. And I was totally caught off guard.
I didn't realize that.
I know it was a rush job. We all know that. It was remixed a few times. I think Tony Bongiovi might have actually finalized that mix. Don't quote me on it. We'll get to the deep dive. But yeah, I was shocked to say that he really disliked that mix. I mean, the keyboards are a little loud, but
absolutely. I mean,
I think it shits all over the Ultimate Sin as a mix.
Oh, without a doubt. I've never ever there are other songs on Bark that I would probably tweak, but Waiting for Darkness is flawless.
Yeah,
start to stop.
How about we lower the damn keyboards on Slow Down and raise the guitars? God. That would be nice, right?
Yep. Yeah.
100%. So we might have lost Josh.
That's what it looks like.
Listeners. So we're going to wrap it up. It was a great, absolute, awesome interview. I just want to say this, Ryan, thank you. You're so much a part of the show, and you're definitely our third member. And thank you for the art. Guys, just wait until you see the artwork Ryan did for fucking the Revelation episodes. They're fucking incredible. And if you want to be a part of this, if you want to join on our Ozzy journey with us, please send a reason why you want to be a part of the show to diaryofthemadman@gmail.com. Let me say that again. diaryofthemadmen@gmail.com. And then just put Revelation in the subject. And then Josh and I will get back to you. And for now, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to have to do the ending because Josh isn't here, but we will see you on the other side.
Thank you, good night. You are the fucking best!
Well, here we sit, what, an hour and 8 minutes later, whatever the fuck it's been that I've been trying to get my internet going right. I've changed backdrops for the listeners because, I got to do what I got to do to make it happen.
He's not worried about the fucking hour and 8 minutes. Ryan have been sitting here with our finger up our ass.
I'm on my second beer now.
I live in the mountains. Fuck off.
We know.
I apologize about my backdrop. Yeah, you look great.
It worked out, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure.